It could.
Good evening. Welcome to the June 24th, 2025 Select Board meeting. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by the Foxborough Cable Access. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Staff, want to lead us?
I sure will.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Citizens input. Anybody? Anybody online? Okay. Multiple amendment application for Foxborough Regional Center for the Performing Arts.
We'll have to wait till 7:05 on that one.
Yep. We're just going to have to wait a few minutes, so feel free to sit. You want to try to do a few...
Action items?
Yeah.
Sure, I have one. Okay. Motion to approve the Select Board meeting minutes from June 10th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
I could do a few items on my update if you want.
Sure.
Okay. So Tom Kenvin received his graduate certificate. He's from the fire department, received his graduate certificate in local government management and strategic leadership from Suffolk University, which is in partnership with the Mass Municipal Association. So big congratulations to him. That's I think a 9-month program. And we've had a few graduates of that program, so it's great, and it's a lot of work. Our June newsletter is available, so if you haven't seen it or signed up, please go ahead and sign up. You can find it on the front page of the website, and then you can also click, and then it will just arrive in your mailbox when they're published. This month, there'll be a brief newsletter going out instead of the big one. Senator Feeney reported last week that the State Hospital Auditorium project came out of committee favorably, and now it's on to the Ways and Means Committee, and Senator Feeney is the Assistant Vice Chair of Ways and Means, so we're hopeful that that will make some progress. There's a bunch of upcoming land use workshops, and we're really hoping that people attend. There's one tonight at 7 p.m. at the community center. That's a repeat of the one that occurred a few weeks ago. We didn't have a good turnout on the evening meeting, so they wanted to run it again tonight. So that's going on right now at the community center, 7 p.m. July 8th is at 6:30. The community center will be the discussion about Neponset Ave and the Schneider Electric land. And we are having to fast track that just because we can't wait till the fall. On July 29th at 7 p.m., also at the community center, it's going to be a discussion of the best ways to accommodate Foxborough's future growth and development. So another important topic. August 26th at 3:45, senior housing needs will be discussed, community center. September 9th at 7 p.m., we discuss the future of Foxborough from economic development to conservation and natural resources. And there's also another survey up on, planfoxborough.com. So there's another survey. So if you check that website, you'll see all of these dates, and you'll see various updates. And if you haven't completed all the surveys, please do. All right, I'm going to keep going. Let's see. All solicitors must receive a license and a copy of the Do Not Solicit list from Foxborough Police Department. So I'm saying this for residents, that if you are not interested in solicitation, there is a sign up. And if you go on the website and you look on the left side, it will say register here on the front page of the website, and that's how you enter your name for the Do Not Solicit registry. Thank you, Katie, for that. But prior to filling out the form, can you just search to make sure your address already isn't entered? It's not by name, it's by address. So this keeps Katie from having to delete names, but it seems to be working. And as of last week, there was only one licensed vendor in town, so.
And that's the one that is circling around. Remember, a couple of
Yes.
people had mentioned it, and they're probably not on the list, not solicited, but I did happen to see that they are. I think somebody must have called the police station. I think it might have been on the police website. They put, there was a list of who, that didn't come from you, did it? No, I think I saw it
No, it
on
wasn't me.
Facebook. But anyhow, it said who has pulled permits, and that those exterminator people have pulled.
They were the only ones,
Yeah.
so it is
Yeah.
it is working, we think. I mean, obviously, if someone's not going to follow the rules, But and it's very uncomfortable. People don't want to call 911 if they get a solicitor that's not on the list, or if they're on the list, and they shouldn't be disturbed, but that is the route to go, call 911. And we've had a few people say, I can't call 911, but that's the way to do it. So they understand and they want to hear. So it's 7:05.
Yep. So being 7:05,
Motion to open the public hearing as the board acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 138 will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, beginning at 7:05 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., on a multiple amendment application from the Foxborough Regional Center for the Performing Arts, doing business as Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center, 1 School Street, Foxborough, Massachusetts. Manager Catherine Miller, requesting a change of category from an on-premise wine and malt, on-premise wine and malt license to an on-premise all alcohol license, a change of officer and alteration of premises. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Second. Mark, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Bill, yes.
Amy, yes.
Debbie, yes.
Right. So, I guess you guys are here to present.
Yeah.
You want to tell us what you're thinking and what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Jim DeVellis, I'm a Foxborough resident, and I'm also on the board of directors at the Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center. With me tonight is Catherine Miller. She is the manager of record and also our executive director for the past 5 years. So Amy's correct. We're here for 3 reasons, and they kind of all came together at the same time. So each year, sometimes we stay the same, but sometimes we bring on new board members, or the board members change into officers. So that's one of the categories. We have a few new board members, and then officer change. Second thing is change of category. So we were basically beer and wine, and what we're asking for is full alcohol menu. And then the third, which is the biggest, and we're very happy to almost be finished with it, is alteration of premises. So over the last couple of years, Catherine's worked very hard to get a grant. It was a matching grant, so we raised about 160 collectively to do, if you drive by the MRPAC now, you'll see it's being painted, new trim. Inside, we've worked over the past couple of years on doing the HVAC and stage. So the last piece was outside. The biggest thing that you'll see is we renovated the front patio. So it's all new concrete, granite stairs, granite columns. We went through the design review, and that'll be finished in the next couple of weeks, more or less. Yeah.
4 weeks,
Yeah. So what we'd like to do is, rather than serve the beer and wine it'll always be served behind the concession stand, but rather than people crowd in that corridor at intermission, we'll open up the patio outside. It's going to be fully fenced or gated off in one area, and just allow the people to come outside and have a glass of wine during intermission, or if we have a function or a fundraiser. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you go around and see it, that's what it is. About 900 square feet, 25 by 16. We've got the Fox piece of art on one side, and then between that and the church, it's going to be the area. It's all going to be fenced in, gated in. So, do you want to say, I blabber on, but do you want to say a few?
No, I mean, that's all encompassing. There's, we've worked out with staff how it will be managed and who will be stationed there for those periods where people will go outside and enjoy their beverage. But again, I think just the benefit is having more space, and having people outside is really great for marketing purposes too, right? Just to see that the theater is lively and the town is alive. So that's the benefit, the ancillary benefit.
If I may?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. But you're not going to have like high tops or tables out there that they can lean on, or?
So no, mostly because I don't want staff to have to take them in and out. But
Okay, fair
but
enough,
there will
yeah.
be benches. We haven't picked them out yet, but most likely granite benches, and then just a lot of standing room.
But you will have staff out there too?
Yes, sir.
At
Yep.
least at the entrances?
That's right, at the entrance, yep. And then there'll be an area to the side that will be stanchioned off as well. And we worked directly with the representative of the ABCC. He came to the theater and kind of worked it out with us as well. So we feel pretty confident that we've done it to the best of our ability.
Just one more, if I may. Yeah. Jim, you mentioned beer and wine out there, but if you get approval for an all liquor license, all liquor will be out there.
Correct, correct, yeah. Yeah, that was the third category, going from beer and wine to all alcohol.
When you're going to make that change from beer and wine to all alcohol, will you be serving a wide variety of mixed drinks, or are you going to be?
Absolutely not.
So you're going to
No.
be staying with one?
So
Thing?
yeah, so we've spoken with the board extensively about this because we don't want to become a bar, right? We're not going to be pouring and mixing drinks, but they do now have canned cocktails already pre-mixed. So our idea is just to have one or two to start off to see how they sell and see how they do. And then another reason for having it, sometimes we have renters come in who want to have events at the theater or fundraisers and their private events, and they want to have their own bartenders doing certain things. That would be like a 1% situation, but this would at least give us the ability where people would want to come in to use our facility for that purpose. But no, on the everyday, no.
No blenders or?
No blenders. No pina coladas,
No
as much as everyone
mudslide
wants one
machines,
today.
none of that, no?
We have popcorn, candy, and then small refrigerators, and that's it.
Yeah.
But if I might again,
Yep. Go ahead, Doc.
bouncing back and forth. So if you do, on the off chance, have a fundraiser and someone brings in their own bartenders and you have an all liquor license, will they be able to bring in any mixed drinks?
It's my understanding that we provide all the alcohol,
Okay.
that we buy it and we purchase it, and that the bartenders are the trained staff members who are licensed to serve and trained to serve and have that certification. Because right now, our tip servers, they
Yeah.
don't have that certification. They can just pour pre-mixed.
Steph?
So, yeah, so a couple of quick questions. So kind of off what Deb said and Doc said. So if you have an outside function come in, so would that be like, so I decide I want to have something at the Maryland Broadman, like, would I be able to say to you, you know what, we want to serve vodka, we want to serve this, or you think you're going to stick to more like the pre-mixed?
I think it'd be very much to be honest, it'd be
Yeah.
a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
I think it depends who it is. Do we know the renter? Does it make sense? At the end of the day, we're going to try not to, right? But sometimes you're having a fundraiser, and we might have a fundraiser there as well, and we might want to have a specialty cocktail.
Yeah.
We would hire bartenders to do so. That is not going to be the everyday
Yeah.
occurrence. We have over 100 performances. 60% of them are children's based. It's not going to be,
Yeah.
that's not going to be the,
It wouldn't be the tail wagging the
Yeah.
dog. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't survive on alcohol, we survive on the cultural and the shows, supplemented
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah.
but we do have a centennial coming up, right? So that might be an opportunity. But, there are functions where that requires that elevation.
Exactly. So, would everything be served the way you're serving it now?
Correct.
Like, no server is gonna go out, take orders, come back, like that type of service? It'll be, you get what you get, and then if you wanna whatever
Yeah,
you wanna
that-
do. You wanna wander, stay in, you wanna wander back. Do people bring drinks back into the theater?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if,
Yeah, the point of sale will always behind the concession,
Yeah.
the cash register, the ID check and all that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll check, the bands if it's an event or something, but
Yeah.
they can pour, we pour into a cup, a glass of wine or a mixed drink,
yeah.
and then they'll bring it in and sit down and then
Yeah.
Probably
How
drop
ma-
it on the floor
How
and
many
pick it up.
people can you have on the patio? Like, what's the capacity for?
Yeah, it's probably about 30 people.
Yeah.
Our occupancy and our seating capacities, which is in the application, is not changing at all. So
Yeah.
it's basically the same area plus
Yeah.
900 square feet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess, the only concern that I had, and I brought it up when we first found, was just that, and then, because then I was like, I said, are they going to have like a bar? And obviously Katie might have known just from the application or talking to you guys. The only concern I really had was using a full alcohol license for, like, if you're going to bring 2 drinks in, if another establishment, another restaurant decided to open up, but then we didn't have a license for them, like if they were going to have a full bar because we're using it for you guys, but then I kind of thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I said, well, you're here, you're applying, we want the theater to thrive, like you said. People love the theater, And so I guess you don't save a license just in case somebody came. But I guess what I'm getting at, just for say for some reason, you found that it wasn't quite, you weren't doing, people weren't buying the 2 or 3 drinks you get. Would you, and it just, would you come back to us at some point and say, you know, maybe we didn't need the full alcohol? I guess it's a very hypothetical. I don't want to put you on the spot, honestly. Everything you guys do up there is wonderful, but I wouldn't be doing my job. That was the only concern I had, whether, but like I said, I guess it's not fair to a business to hold a license, but, because when that's what I did for a living, right? I bartended and waitress, so when I think of a full license, I think of a bar, and not that I want you guys to do that, but that was the only concern I had, but you guys are great. You do a good job up there, and I guess it would not be fair to hold a license based on who might come along down the road. So I just, you know how I am. Any concern I have, I would bring to this table, and, but I think you guys have put all your ducks in a row.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I don't want to belabor it, but I mean, the building's been there. We're coming up to our 100th anniversary.
Yeah.
And when I got involved years ago, we've been doing baby steps. So the trial, I remember coming in front of this board, the question was, do you serve food? And we said, yeah, it's popcorn. So it was kind of a gamble to,
Yeah.
back at the time, we were doing one-day liquor licenses.
Yeah.
And it was just getting
Yeah.
unmanageable. So we said, we'll try it and see how it works out. And we've had no incidents. And
Yeah.
so this is kind of another little baby step.
Yeah.
Insurance will probably go up a little bit. Stress might go up a little bit. If it gets to a point where it's not worth it, I wouldn't mind giving it back.
Yeah.
I've seen businesses do
Well, and I
that
hope that, believe me, I hope that isn't, but I just feel like it wouldn't be doing my job if I even just brought up any concern that I had. And that was the only one. There was no concern about you serving, people overserved, minor served, nothing like that at all. And you know what? I guess maybe, like you said, with baby steps, maybe somewhere down the line, you want to go even bigger. I guess what you said, Jim, exactly. You try this and see how it works. You're already shaking your head no.
I think
It's not, I know, it's
working
not
well.
easy. It's
I
not
think
easy.
it's good to,
Yeah.
the investment from the town, just by believing that this arts organization can continue to grow and continue to thrive, this really is the next level. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but to have this attractive option to many people only helps the theater and thus helps the town.
Yeah.
So yes, we're always in the continuous improvement model. What's better? Does this make sense for our numbers? But at the end of the day, I think we have to grow to keep people coming and be competitive with regional theaters in the area.
And the canned beverages are the hot thing now. They really are.
Yeah.
You go in the liquor stores and it's just like, wow, so, yeah. Good.
Simple.
That's all I had.
Amy?
I really don't have much to contribute other than, I have no problem with it. You guys have done a wonderful job thus far with having just the malt and beverage license that, I want to see you guys be successful. So I
Katie?
support it.
Thank you, sorry. Katie, can you remind us what we have for open all alcohols?
Right now, we have one other all alcohol townwide and 2 beer and wine, with this one coming back. And then we also do have one, off the top of my head, just one at Patriot Place, which is a node-specific license. And I think there's one Route 1, and I think a handful of all other alcohol, but those are node-specific, but there's no extra one for downtown. Those are all taken.
But also, if we found that another business came in and was really looking, we could petition for another license, right? If we could.
Right.
So, so it's not like we wouldn't be able to, we could do our best to try to get a license for another business too.
Yeah, I thought I heard that the ABCC is loosening up the regulations to allow towns to get more licenses. Am I right about that or not?
I don't think they are. What I heard was, I believe, maybe the House or one of the branches push for it, but I don't know that it's going to make it through the next branch.
Okay,
I
maybe
think
that's where,
what
okay.
you might have heard. But there is a movement afoot, but I don't know that it's getting traction.
But as a side note, this is a hell of a lot better than all those one-day.
Well, that was,
I remember those days.
yeah, I agree. Those were tough. Because it's hard, because you can't book unless you get it.
Right.
And then you book it, and then you come after the fact to get it. It wasn't working.
I think as many great decisions you guys made, getting a beer and wine license was one of the top 5.
So the only other question I have, Jim, is typically with these types of permits, there is supposed to be food. And I don't know that I classify popcorn as food, but does that meet with the ABCs?
It does. We went through this when we got the original one,
Okay.
and we came in with the menu and had an extensive discussion. At the time where we have larger events, we have it catered, and they bring in on their food licenses, and then they leave. But, you know, we entertained years ago, like paninis and sandwiches and stuff, but there's just, we don't want people coming off the street to grab a sandwich and a beer. So it's just, this is the best we can do, and it's been working.
Okay,
So.
all right.
And the other thing is too, people come to the theater, they might want to have a cocktail, have a glass of wine, have a beer, have a canned drink, but they're really, it's not like a bar where they're there to get loaded, right? So, I mean, as long as it meets what the guidelines are for food,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, I get people, because you think food, something really more to fill, you know, guess what? I don't think it really matters. Like, if you take that whole tips thing, you know, it's all, people will say, oh yeah, well, if you eat greasy food, if you ate this or whatever. A lot of it is not true, you know, as long as you're serving something, and I'm sure people aren't gonna come in there and have 10 drinks. They're there to see a show, right?
What's kind of unique with the theater is we've worked hard, or Catherine's worked very hard to get relationships with the restaurants, whether it be Union Straw or Station 1, where the dinner and a show. So people, when we have a big show, they'll go into all the restaurants, fill them up, and then come for the show and have a drink, and that's been
Yeah.
working well.
Yeah.
Anything else? No. You guys good?
Yep.
Motion to close?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Mark, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Bill, yes.
Amy, yes.
Debbie, yes.
Okay. So we'll start with the,
First motion.
yep.
Motion to approve the change of category application from an all-premise wine and malt license to an on-premise all alcohol license for Foxborough Regional Charter for the Performing Arts, doing business as Marilyn Rahman Performing Arts Center, 1 School Street.
Second.
Roll call?
Do we have to roll call these? Huh?
Right with that?
Yep.
Mark, yes.
Stephanie, yes?
Bill, yes.
Amy, yes.
Debbie, yes.
All right, next.
Motion to approve the change of officer application from an, am I reading it again? No, I'm not. Okay, motion to approve the change of officer application from an on-premise wine and malt license to an on-premise all alcohol license for Foxborough Regional Center for the Performing Arts, doing business as Marilyn Rahman Performing Arts Center, 1 School Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Mark, yes.
Stephanie, yes.
Bill, yes.
Amy, yes.
Debbie, yes.
Apologies, Bill, you don't need to roll call. I only have it on the
Doesn't
close
matter.
the public hearing. Apologies.
We're good.
Motion to approve an alteration of premise application from an on-premise wine and malt license to an on-premise all alcohol license for the Foxborough Regional Center for the Performing Arts, doing business as Marilyn Rahman Performing Arts Center, 1 School Street. Interior to remain the same, with the addition to an exterior patio, approximately 900 square feet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none?
Great. Thank you all for your time.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
I can't wait to see it out there.
Couple more months. Thank you.
Paige, you want to take us into your transfers with Brandon?
Sure.
You going to come forward?
Can do, although I believe we have Marie on Zoom, Brandon here, but do you all have, this is a very helpful document here. That's a good summary of the year-end transfers. Self-explanatory. I'm glad to run through them. So this is a customary approach at the end of the year to be done. We're meeting with the advisory committee tomorrow night, and there is a chart online that outlines it, so I think the best bet is to just go through and describe them. So the town manager's office has a vacation payout of $1,000, and that's was unanticipated. It's coming from a surplus within the town manager's expense budget. For number 2, we have advisory committee. That's also coming from the town manager expense budget, and that's where printing costs for the advisory committee, recommendations for town meeting. Those came in higher than budgeted. Third one is for the town clerk elections and internal transfer. The reason associated with that was overtime related to elections and town meeting. $19,953 was reimbursed by the state for early voting, but it's still a net overage. And the way we paid for that, is proposed to pay for that is a surplus within the town clerk's elections expense budget. The fourth one is central maintenance. And there was an emergency boiler replacement at the Joint Public Safety Building, and that transfer is going from group insurance budget surplus over to central maintenance. Anne Marie, feel free to chime in if I misspeak or if there's anything I'm not covering, but I figure I'll save you from having to do this. Fire department had an overage that was unbudgeted retirement payouts and increased spending on outside repairs that exceeded the budget by $120,000, despite $150,000 from the fire stabilization fund, which shows growth in the operation. The funding source will be a group insurance budget surplus, but there's also a note on this that the cost for the outside repairs will be reimbursed back to the general fund because the revenues collected currently get deposited into the general fund, so it's a wash. And the revolving fund is planned for the next fiscal year, so we shouldn't have to do this anymore. Sixth one is the Joint Public Safety Building. This is an internal transfer. There was some overages in building maintenance expenses, and the funding source is surplus under the Joint Public Safety Building salaries. Number 7, and I know that we had some questions on this, is snow and ice, and that's going to be transferred out of group insurance and police surplus. And there were increased snow events. There were 5 in FY25 versus 3 in FY24. There was more overtime due to the employees responding to the events in 7 payrolls, uptown snow removal, early salt purchase due to low starting stockpile. And again, it's group insurance and police budget surplus. And this covers 50% of the total transfers and presents the need to raise snow and ice on the FY26 tax recap sheet. Does anybody have any questions on that one?
What was the original budget on that one?
Do you guys have that one? Let's see.
218 in my head, but
It's 221,800.
plow capital went up $3,000.
Okay.
Do you need
And
any?
is that the same number that we've budgeted for
I
a
think
number of
next
years?
year is slightly higher by like $500 or something like that for the plow cost.
And can either one of you, because I think it's important that the taxpayers understand why we don't try to budget that at a higher number?
Marie, do you want to speak
I can
to that?
jump in on that. So with the snow and ice, it's the only budget that you can legally overspend. There is a risk in increasing this budget because once you increase it, you essentially can't decrease it. So we've kept this budget pretty much level funded for a number of years now. And in the past, we would always raise the deficit on the tax recap sheet, which when you do that, you essentially are pulling money from next year's budget. So what we've been trying to do the last couple of years is to clear the deficit with current budget surplus and leaving, the revenues that are available for next year budget alone. Eventually, once we get into a better financial position, we should, given that we historically have gone over this budget, I think we should look at it gradually increasing it, just to kind of help. I mean, you're expected to have a deficit year after year, so keeping this budget level funded isn't working. But we are fortunate that we have, these budget savings and other budgets to cover this deficit. And if it weren't for this snow and ice, the sum of the other transfers was $270,000. So we've been since in fiscal year 22, we had transfers of $338,000. In '23, it was $410,000. Last year was $405,000. So it was a little less if you pull out that snow and ice deficit.
Okay. So again, I think that it, as Marie said, this is one of the only budgets that you can overspend legally without having to have the funding approval in advance. And as she said, if we were to automatically take it up like we had, let's say, 405,000 in '26, you can never take it back. So it creates a problem for you if that were, if you went too high. So you want to get closer, but you don't want to be out of the realm of reality, because it'll only hurt your budget going forward.
And Chris, also, do I remember, I don't know if it was the budget from where I live on board, or was on AdCom, when you, if you budget too much, then say we have a storm that's considered, by the state, maybe a named storm or something, that you also lose that opportunity to maybe get funds to help? Is that true?
No, I think if MEMA or FEMA declares it a blizzard, is generally what would happen in the winter months, we would still be able to qualify for that federal reimbursement or state reimbursement. Generally, they'll reimburse 75% of whatever we spent.
Okay.
We usually have like a 24-hour or 48-hour period that we get reimbursed for. So a lot of times we'll try to cram in, if there's snow removal that needs to be done, we'll try to cram it all in. Even if we're exhausted, we try to get everybody out there and do it safely and get that snow out, just because we can recapture that cost, if that's the case.
And see, I thought that I might have been confusing between, being able to, recap some of the money, and I just have always heard that you can't, it's not good to over budget. It just isn't, right?
Yeah, I think that's because we have
like
these.
Bill said, you can't go down.
What Bill said, you can never drop it back down, and you have these off years, or a couple of years recently where we've been spending kind of at that limit, that $200,000 mark. And if we had budgeted $300,000, now that money's kind of locked in from the other departments that could be using it in that general fund budget.
But I assume, Brandon and Marie, that still would close out to free cash if you didn't spend it. So it's
Yes.
the fact that you've lost that access for the year in your budgeting.
And also, even maybe for people at home, if I'm saying this correctly, just if you'll confirm, I know for us, you don't get much snow, and then everybody says, well, why do we spend so much money? Is it often that sometimes treating the roads can cost just as much? Like people think of it as inches of snow, but it's not always inches of snow.
We'd rather have a foot of cold snow and deal with that than the storms we've been having over the last few years. A lot of the storms we've had recently are, they're long duration, they're 12, 14-hour storms, but it's because it rains or sleets for a little bit, and then the roads freeze, and then it keeps raining, but it's right around 32 degrees, so we just have to keep treating the roads with that salt, which is why this year the salt budget went up. Again, we started with not much in the salt shed, so we had to order early, and a lot of those longer duration storms we had this year than last year, it wasn't volume of snow, it was the material cost and the bodies. We also had a lot of weekend storms this year.
Yeah. Just so people, overtime.
Double time
Yeah.
on Sundays.
I wanted to make sure that you confirmed it, because that's what happens. In Summerfield, we take care of our own snow removal, and that's the big question we get all the time. Why did we go over, or why are you budgeting so much? And it's always like, we didn't get any snow. So I just wanted to make sure, even people at home know it's not about how
And
much snow.
we've changed our operation. We do use less salt as we go around the town, but we're going around the town more often.
Yeah.
We have added a couple of pieces of equipment on our contractor side for parking lot clearing. So we now have a dedicated piece of equipment behind the Central Street stores. They work there. They also work the parking lot on Railroad Ave at Schneider. We have another piece of equipment that we added up at the high school. So that's dedicated to working in that high school parking lot. That's a big time-consuming factor when we have to do it after the storm's done. So it helps keep things operational too. So some of those days that other towns around us were canceling school, we didn't have to cancel school. We had no snow days this year. And same thing, we heard from the public, and this goes back a few years, that the people that have businesses on Central Street and South Street really want that parking lot behind those stores accessible during events. People don't want to sit at home. They want to be out moving around. So we heard that, and we added and we changed our operation a little bit to accommodate those requests.
Any other questions?
No, all set?
Nope. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris, for pulling all that together. The 8th item is for the Health Department. That's $1,000 it's funding through the health expenses, and that was for an intern who did tobacco compliance checks, went around to the stores and checked to make sure they weren't selling to underage. And then the 9th one was risk management, and it's taken from police surplus, and there were some unexpected costs for the fire rescue liability and drone insurance. So that was something that we captured through the police surplus. Marie, do you have anything to add to any of this?
No, I think you covered everything there. Like I said, you know, if it weren't for the snow and ice, we'd only be at $270,000. And this is still going to leave us with a decent free cash at the end of this fiscal year.
Marie, I'm not sure if this question should be directed to you, but like say number 5 for the fire department, did we have some unexpected retirements? Because, I mean, usually you know who's coming up and you know, how come we were so under budgeted for?
If we know at the time that we're setting the budget, we factor those in. But in this case, these were not known at the time. So you have about, what was that, $66,000 there. And we have, as you know, we have the salary reserve fund, but where we try to load the funds for these anticipated retirement payouts, but these were not included in those budget calculations. And what was the other thing? Oh, I did want to note, so the budgets that did have surplus, so you had, let me look at my file here. So we have so there were a few departments that had small surpluses within the budgets. So we were able to do it, or we will be able to do an internal transfer for those. The reason the police budget had surplus, once again, they're now in year 2 of their domestic violent substance abuse grant. This grant covers 15% of the salary of three staff, and it also covers any related overtime for various employees. This grant is ending. It was supposed to end last fiscal year, but it got extended for 1 more year. But it is supposed to end at the end of this month. So that's a partial reason for that surplus. The other reason is they've had several officers out on injured on duty, and as you may know, we do receive reimbursement, partial reimbursement for those payroll expenses. So that's money that once we receive it from the insurance company, it goes right back into the police budget. So these are essentially one-time savings and not to be relied upon annually. So this isn't money that's available, you know, for recurring expenses. We're fortunate that we've had these surpluses, so we've been able to take care of some of these year-end deficits. But this isn't going to be a forever kind of thing. On the group insurance side, we typically budget a surplus in there, plus or minus to cover 10 employees in case they do get on a family plan. As you know, that's our most expensive plan, a little over $25,000 a year per employee. So we usually have a surplus for plus or minus for about 10 employees. And then we also, given that we had a number of retirements, there was also savings that came from those. So that was just some additional information on why we had surpluses in those budgets. Any questions, comments?
No, I'm good.
Nope, I think we're good. Thank you, Marie.
Yep.
Motion to approve the FY25 year-end town manager transfers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. All right, what do we got next?
OPEB.
Okay, yep, OPEB. Do you
That's
want to
Marie,
handle
do
it?
you, Marie, do
Maria,
you
you
wanna
going to handle the
take
OPEB?
Sure. This one's been I've been running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to get this sorted out. But basically, long story short, we have a new audit firm. They actually came out last week or 2 weeks ago, actually, to begin their field work on that fiscal year 25 audit. And one of the first questions or requests that I got was it was a request for a copy of our OPEB trust agreement. And, I went around digging for this document, come to find out that the town never adopted a trust agreement. So back in 2010, the town voted to adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 20. And this essentially enables you to set up an OPEB trust to put aside money to tackle down that liability. A requirement of that, adopting that section of the law, is that you establish essentially a formal OPEB trust agreement, and that was never executed at that time. Fortunately, the town did. I don't know if some of you might remember, back in January 2023, we readopted that same section of the law because there were some changes that came with the Municipal Modernization Act of 2016. So we are covered there. We did readopt the law, which allowed us to comply with the statutory requirements. Now, the only piece that's missing is this formal trust agreement. And I worked with Bartholomew Bank, who manages our OPEB trust, in conjunction with our treasurer, Paula. They provided me with a template. I went through it and made some changes. Then we sent it off to town council. They went through it, and what you have in front of you is the final version of the document. And essentially, it basically lays out what the two town meeting votes essentially authorized. The treasurer is the trustee. The funds are in a trust and can only be spent on health insurance benefits and other related costs like administrative costs. We can pay for an actuary to do the biennial valuation. We don't do that. We pay for that out of the group insurance budget. And any administrative costs, same thing. We don't use the OPEB trust monies, but you can do that if the town authorizes that. Basically, this is now the final piece, and I'm hoping that the reason why it's in front of you, because we're trying to get it in before the end of the fiscal year, just so that to make our auditors, new auditors, happy. I'll take any questions, comments.
So I'm going to quickly. So as I read through the whole document, other than a lot of legal jargon between the things, the reality is what it is really an agreement between the Board of Selectmen and the treasurer, outlining the treasurer's duties and responsibilities under the trust.
Yes.
So, and that is what we didn't have in place. So really all we're doing is quantifying it that way. And quite honestly, for the treasurer, I think it obviously also protects her to a degree, because it says if she's following those guidelines, then she's within her rights of how she could, invest the funds and work with it from there. So, does anybody else have any?
No, that was a good, concise way to.
Originally I was trying to figure out who the agreement was with, but then I got it, so.
That was good.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
Deb, do you have any questions?
No.
Amy?
I'm good for the explanation.
Thank you.
Steph, any?
No.
Nope.
Okay, motion to approve the other post-employment benefits, OPEB trust agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? Thank you very much, Marie, for that.
Thanks, Marie.
Thanks, Marie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Marie.
good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yep.
No, I just said good night, Mary.
To Marie.
Thanks, Brad.
Not to us. We still got stuff to
Close the
do.
meeting?
Thank you.
Okay, board and committees and commissions. This is you, Katie?
This is me. This is my baby. So from what Michelle asked last meeting, we worked together, and Mark Boucher, who's the chair of the Veteran Services Advisory Committee. And so this it's a long section, but it's just really asking if we can do 3-year staggered appointments for that Veteran Services Advisory Committee, and then just we're picking 2 people are going to be, have 3-year terms, and then we split the rest of the group between 2-year appointments and 1-year appointments. We don't have to do the 1-year appointments because you guys already did them for that small group. And that's agenda item number 5.
So everybody remembers what this
Yeah.
discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, so no issues there. All right.
Okay, motion to amend the Veteran Services Advisory Committee appointment terms to be staggered 3-year appointments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Motion to approve Mark Boucher to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2028.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
Okay. Motion to approve Gary Whitehouse to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2028.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none.
Okay. Motion to approve Naomi Boucher to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Motion to approve John Conley to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
Motion to approve William Dudley to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
Motion to approve Sir, how do you say his first name?
Cyril.
Dumas to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
Motion to approve Bertha Maloof to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
Motion to approve Patricia Shea to the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for a term to end May 31st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none?
And then on 5.10, we'd like to hold this, just confirming a few things with town council before we move forward on that. And then 5.11, there was a mistake. The audit committee appointments, they're 3-year terms. I think I had it in there as 2 and 3-year terms, but that was first when the committee was established.
Motion to amend the Boards, Committee, and Commissions handbook to reflect the correct terms for audit committee appointments. Term is 3 years.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
All right.
Street naming, Maple Crest Farm Subdivision. Anybody here to speak to this?
So just by way of background on this, being a street naming request, as you know, this board has taken a policy to ensure that it goes to first to veterans. And so prior to this being moved forward, I did meet with Michelle, our veterans agent, and since the person the Conservation Commission is seeking to name the road after is a veteran, she had absolutely no problem with this naming. So just to set the stage.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
I'm Rich Glenn, on the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
David Opatka, Conservation Commission.
Rebecca Kelly, also Conservation Commission.
Okay. So you want to give us a little background on what you're looking at doing here?
Well, we have an opportunity to name a street name after Bob in recognition of his many, many years of service. We were trying to take this opportunity to fill that spot and give him some recognition for the work well done and recognize his contribution to the town of Foxborough.
We were approached by Mr. Buckley, Bill Buckley, who was working on this subdivision, and he brought it to our attention if we would support having the lane named after Bob. And that's the reason why a letter was sent in. Jim Marsh, the vice chairman, was on his way,
Yeah,
but he's the
running
one that
late,
put
yeah.
So it's actually going to be named the Robert, what is it?
No, it would be
Bo-
Bodie
Boet-
Lane.
Boet
Bodie Lane.
Yeah.
Just Bodie Lane?
Bodie Lane.
Okay.
And I did check with the police and fire chiefs, because we always want to make sure that doesn't sound similar, and neither had any concern about
Oh,
the
good, yeah.
sort of sound of it. You don't want, we learned the hard way from, like, I think Barrows and Barros, and so we need to make sure the roads are separate, so when they're called over emergency lines, that it's very clear the road name. So neither of them had a problem with Bodie Lane.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
The letter that was written was very well written and certainly provides enough background for Mr. Bodie to have a lane named after him.
That was Jim, who I think just pulled into the driveway.
You can tell him after.
Quick, let's vote on it before you.
It might be nice to actually mention a few of the highlights, just to, Mr. Bodie's years of service, in addition to Town of Foxborough and Conservation Commission, but I didn't know that he was, a veteran of the Navy when he joined when he was 17 years old. And so, there's a lot in here. He was stationed in Newport, Rhode Island. He met his wife, Carol, and he was honorably discharged in 1955. And that's when they moved to Carmine Avenue, and they still reside there today. So we all know him sort of more recently, but I certainly, for all these years, I didn't realize that he joined the Navy at age 17. And, so he's really been serving for a long time.
Yeah, he was,
Many different capacities in this town.
Yes, absolutely. So I have one question. I fully support this, but, so what's the chain here? Who, the builder who's building?
it was an opportunity that was discussed with us, that he had a road that he wanted to do.
Who was building?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So it was just an opportunity that we thought we would take to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was
You
missing
don't
the
get,
chain.
every day you don't get an opportunity to.
Because normally you would think the person building the road would be coming.
Usually they have their own
before us.
ideas on the
No,
names.
in my head, I was like, I wasn't following how it got to conservation, and then here, so you guys are actually making the request.
Correct, yes.
Is that how it would be, or would
Yeah,
it be
I thought normally it would
builder?
come from planning or,
Yeah, the planning board doesn't, we used to work off of a list that was provided by the historical commission, but the select board is actually the road commissioners, so it's not really a clear chain. And then the more recent discussion of the veterans kind of put you at the forefront, and so I think it was to ensure that there was no concern about that process, and that's why I checked with Michelle. But the planning board has, I believe, approved the subdivision. It's called Maple Crest Farm. It's on 60 to 62 North Street. So there will be a new road going in there. And then now that but I'm sure the planning board has no problem with it, because they just always worked off the list that was provided. They tended to not get too involved in road naming, so.
Yeah,
And
okay, well, that's what I was kind of like, like I said, fully support it, but I was like, so the Conservation Committee is asking us, but I don't feel, like it's not coming from the developer or planning or whatever. That's why I was asking. Fully support it, believe me. He's a absolutely wonderful man. I just wasn't following why it was coming from conservation to us.
Like in many towns where I've worked, the developer did choose the road name. You'd have a road come in and it'd be like Tiffany Lane, or, it'd be named after their children.
Right.
But in Foxborough, it was always, and actually in Rentham as well, it was always based on a historical name that we had. I think we were running out in the planning department, and I don't think, and given that it's veterans at this point,
Yeah.
not that I don't want to say anybody cares, but it's not a power grab by any board, so I think so long as, conservation, I'm assuming planning's fine with it, as long as it gets checked by public safety, that's really what the
Yeah,
planning
my
board
worry
looks
is
at.
that, I was thinking, is somebody else going to come forward and say, wait a minute, we were supposed to ask this? That's why, like
I
I
don't
said,
think
fully
so.
support it.
No,
Perfect.
it's coming,
Yeah.
the idea came from the engineering firm that's working with the developer, so.
So the planning board anyhow, they're going to determine what the name of the street is. There might be a request from someone.
where?
Oh, no, but I mean, they're going to, so, yeah, they're going to push it. Like, so.
Push it forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this will take care of it. Now there's no question. Sometimes they approve he's running in. Sometimes they do come in with a subdivision name.
Yeah.
They'll check with Gabby in advance, but I think the process is a little unclear right now, given the most recent guidance. So I don't think it matters. It might be wise, I think, for the applicants to come to this board, or if this board, I think the best thing would be coming up with a list. And then that way, we could provide it to any future developer that comes in, they could choose any one of those names, and then you don't really have to take action or formal action. You
You
could
would
just
just
authorize
go
the
to
planning
the
board to
next
choose one of
name.
those.
Yeah.
So it is a little out of order, it seems to be a little upended, but this way we make sure that the road, you are ultimately the road commissioners when they become public ways, so I don't think
So
anybody
it doesn't
really
matter, the bus
cares.
is stopping here.
Yeah.
Either way, okay.
Well, your team has done a great job, but if you want to add something,
I didn't mean to ask the questions to have to pull you in, fully
No
supportive
worries.
it. I just wasn't following, like, why it was coming from conservation, that's all. Fully support it.
Jim Marsh, 32 Faxon Street. I think the reason we chose to present the request, I mean, Bob's been a member of the board for 40-plus years.
Yep.
We thought it was an important thing to have something which would be dedicated for Bob or his family, be remembered for his service and the time and volunteering he's put into this town. We thought it was really something which we thought was really appropriate. And knowing that this subdivision's going in, having discussions with the engineer, and they were looking for choice of name, and it just made sense. So we jumped at the opportunity and proposed this. So that's sort of where it came from. That's what precipitated.
I know him very well, well deserved.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, across conservation, of course, but across
Every other.
so much to do with town, yeah. No,
We sang your
absolutely.
praises already about your letter, so we're ready just to move on.
yeah, and it does cross off or checks all the boxes for us, so.
Okay.
I guess if there's no other comments, you want to do the motion?
Motion to approve the street name request, Maple Crest Farm Division to be Bodie Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none?
Great job.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great letter.
Okay, where did you leave off on
Okay.
your list page?
Back to me. So I have quite a Walnut Knoll update. So Walnut Knoll, as you know, is the 55 and older not subdivision, development being built on Walnut Street. And how about those traffic lights? They're coming along. One of these days, we're gonna drive by there and they're gonna be live. So they're moving quite expeditiously. So we did get an email from the Peabody Group, and it's an update. So Building 2 application and lottery update. They're currently in the application period for Building 2, with the deadline for submission set for June 29th, so coming up this weekend, I believe. The lottery for Building 2 is tentatively scheduled for July 11th, and to date, they've received over 800 applications for Building 2, with approximately 25% indicating a local preference, so 25% from Foxborough. And just a reminder to those at home that the key thing that I noticed when doing the cable show we did was that electricity and heat are included in this. So that's a key, I think, in this day and age, that utilities are included. All you need to pay for is your cable and your phone. So that's key there. Building 1, interview and unit status. The interviews for Building 1 are well underway. They are actively processing applicants for all 30% income restricted units alongside several backup applicants. For the 60 and 80% units, they continue to advertise on a first come, first served basis. So what that means is the 30%, the lowest rent units with strict income requirements are already maxed out and they're on a wait list. But for the 60 and 80, which are a bit more expensive, more closer to the market, they still might have some availability. They will be offering hard hat tours. They plan to begin offering hard hat tours for approved applicants towards the end of July. The applicants will not be assigned to specific units until closer to the official occupancy date. And during the tours, each approved applicant will have the opportunity to view the property and a selection of units that align with their preferences. While there is considerable excitement to see the apartments in person, due to the nature of this being an active construction site, tours have to be limited to approved applicants at this time. Bummer. Here's a key one. So the affordability is funded through tax credits, and there's a tax credit qualification process, and they wanted me to make this important reminder. The qualification process for tax credit communities is inherently extensive and rigorous. They've frequently received feedback from applicants expressing concerns such as, why do I need to provide this? Why do you need so much information? And why do you need this now when we don't move until September? They are assuming we hear similar inquiries. Fortunately, I could say I haven't, but maybe Mark Craig and his team have. It's crucial that they collectively reiterate to applicants that these requirements are mandated by the nature of the program and must be followed precisely for qualification. To ensure a swift approval process, they must emphasize the importance of timely documentation submission. If the applicants do not return required documents within the specified timeframes, the Peabody Group will be compelled to move forward to the next applicant in line. Although the occupancy date is not until September, initiating this comprehensive approval process well in advance is essential for facilitating a rapid and efficient move-in for all units. That's it. So that's our update on Walnut Knoll. It's going great, sounds like, but sounds like a lot of work for everybody. And as you know, they're conducting interviews over in the old senior center, so that's also working out great. Let's see what else I have here. We have, I attended the Boyden Library's Tinker Tank grand opening. That is located in the old tutoring room. And it was very great. It was last week, and they have all sorts of, they had a sewing machine, an embroidery machine, you can make pins, just a variety, a Cricut machine. I always thought it was Cry-Cut. It turns out it's Cricut. So that's really cool, and there was a great turnout by the community. So I encourage everyone to head over to the library and check out that. I believe if you are under 12, you require a parent with you, and if between 12 and 18, the parents have to sign off on permission. So just check on that. The other thing we've been advertising online is regarding the Stadium Advisory Committee. I think I mentioned this last time, but if there is a noise complaint during an event, there is a hotline to call, and we always have a member of the Stadium Advisory Committee on premise, and they will handle it in the moment. With respect to our strategic plan, RFP, where the RFP is almost done, well, it's done, and I sent it out to department heads for their review of criteria and scope, and then I intend to send out a draft to this board on Friday, and I hope that you'll be able to vote on it on July 15th. So they'll give you a little bit of time. I realize it's a holiday, but they'll give you a little, almost 2 weeks to look at, actually over 2 weeks to look at it. Another note is in the fewer than 3 years, Foxborough will be turning 250 years old. So that's something, I happened to watch Rentham just do it last year, and there was a lot of, there was a committee and there was a lot of hoopla, and I don't imagine Foxborough does anything small. So folks might want to start thinking about what's appropriate for a 250-year celebration, and I know in Rentham there were many celebrations year-long, so just putting that in everybody's ears so you can think about that. It's coming up fast. From our human resources, we have 5 open positions. A conservation agent, for which we have interviews next week. A community substance use coordinator, that's a part-time position. Recreational instructional assistants, a DPW water tech, and a water treatment supervisor. And then construction, I think we've all seen it around town, the Walnut Street, Route 140, the traffic signal's well underway. And then finally, we're seeing milling and paving over on the Market, Rock Hill, Union Street area, so there will be disruption. I believe they're milling now, and they'll be paving for between now and July 2nd. And it also includes, so the streets are Rock Hill, Market, Union, Fales Place, Gilmore Street, Centennial Street, Angela Drive, Joanna Drive, Beaumont's Pond Drive, and Lauren Lane. So that's, stay away from them. They're under construction, but I know the residents will be thrilled to finally have them in good shape. And that's all I have.
Was there a timeline on when they expect to do the milling and paving on where Walnut Street and 140 connect?
I don't know.
That's under the contractor that's doing all that work there?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I believe Chris has said for a while that they're supposed to be done by July 15th, but I don't know that they'll really be done by July 15th. Certainly looks like they will, but see.
And as far as the farm stand that's there, are they okay to be able to operate?
Yep.
They're getting out of the way as far as the
Yes,
state?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and every time I drive by, I note that the parking lot is less and less impacted. So I think, and I know they put out a post on social media, and I think they're people that are really looking forward to having a light there because it's so dangerous coming out of the farm stand. So I haven't had any complaints. I take that as a very good sign.
Okay, great. Sorry, just timed out.
Select board update.
Yeah. Sorry. So the only thing I will add as far as construction was I was at the DPW meeting this morning. Good progress being made on that. The current expected completion date is December 11th. Obviously, we continue to push to see if we can get that back closer to with the original schedule on it. But the building is really taking shape and is looking good. I think the contractor is doing a good job. And I give a lot of credit to Chris working as the OPM on that project as well as obviously his day job. So that's gone well. The summer hours, obviously, for the Board of Selectmen, we've made this announcement a couple times, but obviously, we have only 2 meetings in July and August. July 15th will be our next meeting, so 1 meeting each month. And just as a reminder, committee and commission, I'm sorry, new appointments and reappointments for all boards, committees, and commissions need to be sworn in for the new term as soon as possible. So you need to see the town clerk as soon as you possibly can to be sworn in at this point. And again, that's just a reminder.
I got caught today. Bob came up and he's like, "Did you want to get sworn in?" I'm like, "I didn't." The year goes by so fast, I hadn't even realized it. So he kindly came up to me and I got sworn at.
But he doesn't have time to kindly come up to everybody,
No,
so
he doesn't.
everybody else needs to.
But they have a good system down there, so they'll get you in and out, no problem.
Yep. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else on the board have any?
No, we're good.
Okay. And we've done the action items, so I think we're good to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, everyone.